The distress beacon screamed through Mara's comm system at 0300 hours, jolting her from sleep in her cramped orbital repair station. She cursed, slapping the console awake with one calloused hand. The readout made her freeze. A vessel the size of a small moon drifted 3 clicks off her position, hemorrhaging plasma from a ruptured primary conduit. No identification. No hails answered.
Just that piercing emergency frequency cutting through the dark. Mara pulled on her work suit, fingers trembling slightly.
23 years she'd run this backwater repair dock at the edge of human space, fixing mining rigs and cargo haulers. Nothing had prepared her for this. The ship's silhouette blotted out the stars. Elegant and organic where human vessels were angular and crude. Alien? Definitely alien. And dying. Her better judgment screamed to ignore it. File a report with the authorities. Let someone else handle first contact with whatever species built that magnificent monstrosity. But Mara had never been good at walking away from broken things. She sealed her helmet, grabbed her tool case, and launched her service pod into the void. The closer she got, the more her instruments went haywire. The hull wasn't metal, not exactly. It pulsed faintly, like living tissue wrapped around a titanium skeleton. The breach glowed angry orange, venting atmosphere and coolant in rhythmic spurts. Mara maneuvered her pod alongside magnetic clamps engaging with a shutter. Through her viewport, she could see the damage. A micrometeorite strike, catastrophically placed. The conduit fed what looked like life support to the entire aft section. If she didn't patch it soon, whoever was aboard would suffocate. She cycled through her airlock, boots hitting the alien hull with a magnetic thunk. Her suit lights swept across surfaces that seemed to ripple and adjust to her presence, unnerving. She pushed the feeling down and moved to the breach, pulling out her fusion welder and a sheet of her strongest patch alloy. It probably wouldn't hold long, but it might buy them time. The work consumed her. Mara lost herself in the familiar rhythm even as nothing about this was familiar. The alien hull material resisted her welder at first, then suddenly accepted it, the patch bonding at a molecular level far better than it had any right to. She reinforced the seal, rerouted secondary systems to compensate for the damaged primary conduit, and jury-rigged a pressure regulator from spare parts in her tool case. 2 hours passed in focused silence. When she finally straightened, examining her work with a critical eye, the hole beneath her feet vibrated. Not damage. Something deliberate. Response? The ship was waking up. Mara's heart hammered as panels began sliding open along the hull, revealing corridors lit with bioluminescent strips. An airlock dilated directly in front of her. Unmistakable invitation. Or trap. She stood frozen, hand hovering over her pod's remote recall. The smart move was to run. Report this. Let the diplomats and military handle whatever came next. But something made her step forward. Curiosity, professional pride. The same stubborn streak that made her choose a lonely repair dock over a safe planetside life. She crossed the threshold and the airlock sealed behind her with organic finality. The interior took her breath away, sweeping corridors of living crystal and flowing metal, pulsing with soft light. Warm air cycled through her suit's external sensors, oxygen rich and clean. The ship was healing itself around her repairs, using her patch as a template. Incredible. The corridor ahead stretched empty and waiting. Mara walked forward, boots silent on the smooth floor, until she entered a vast chamber. She stopped dead. The room was circular, easily 100 meters across, ringed with viewing ports showing the starfield outside. But Mara's attention locked on the chamber's occupants. 7 figures stood in a semicircle, each over 3 meters tall, covered head to toe in armor that seemed grown rather than forged. The armor was white as bone, etched with flowing script in gold, and each figure held a staff that hummed with barely contained energy. Guards. Royal guards, if Mara's racing mind was reading the situation right. They didn't move, didn't speak, but their attention focused on her with laser intensity. Behind them, elevated on a dais of living crystal, sat a throne. And on that throne sat something that made Mara's knees weak. The being was massive, easily 4 meters tall even seated, with 4 arms folded in elegant repose. Her skin was the deep blue of Earth's oceans, marked with silver patterns that flowed and shifted like living tattoos. A crown of crystalline growths rose from her elongated skull, refracting the room's light into rainbow patterns. But it was her eyes that pinned Mara in place, 6 of them arranged in 2 rows, glowing with an intelligence that felt ancient and absolute. A queen. And Mara had just broken into her ship. The silence stretched, broken only by Mara's harsh breathing inside her helmet. She'd made a catastrophic mistake. This wasn't some abandoned derelict. This was a flagship, a royal vessel. And she'd waltzed aboard like she owned the place, covered in grease and wielding improvised repairs like they were good enough for royalty. One of the guards shifted, staff rising slightly. Mara's hand went to her belt, where the emergency beacon transmitter sat uselessly. No one would reach her in time if this went wrong. She was alone. 3 clicks from her station, surrounded by beings who could crush her without effort. The Queen's hand lifted, a gesture of such precise control that the guard immediately froze. Those 6 eyes studied Mara, sweeping from her battered helmet to her worn boots, lingering on the tool case still clutched in her offhand. Mara forced herself to meet that gaze, chin up. If she was going to die for her stupidity, she'd do it with dignity. Then the Queen tilted her head, and something that might have been amusement flickered across her alien features. She spoke, and though the language was nothing Mara recognized, a translator kicked in, the words forming in Mara's helmet display with crystal clarity. "You saved my ship, little builder. My children sleep in the aft section." "You saved my children." Children. The life support she'd patched fed a nursery. She'd saved the Queen's children without knowing who they were, without expecting reward or recognition, just because it was the right thing to do. The Queen rose from her throne, descending the dais with fluid grace. The guards parted immediately, forming a corridor. Mara stood her ground, though every instinct screamed to run. The Queen stopped 3 meters away, towering over her, and extended one of her 4 hands palm up. In it rested a small crystal, glowing with internal light. "This vessel owes you a debt, mechanic. I owe you a debt. Will you accept our gratitude?" Mara stared at the offered crystal, mind racing. This was first contact. Real first contact, not some planned diplomatic mission with protocols and translators and safety measures. Just her, a wrench, and the grateful mother of an alien species she'd never known existed. She reached out slowly, carefully, and accepted the crystal. It was warm, almost alive in her palm. "I'm just glad I could help. I'm Mara Chen." The Queen's expression shifted into something that transcended species barriers. A mother's smile, universal and warm. "I am Velcaris, first mother of the Ethel Dominion. And you, Mara Chen, are no longer just anything." Behind Velcaris, a smaller doorway dilated. A child emerged, maybe half the Queen's height, skin a lighter shade of blue, moving with careful steps under the watchful gaze of another armored guard. The child's eyes, 4 instead of 6, went wide when they spotted Mara. They rushed forward, making sounds that the translator rendered as excited chirps. "Mama!" "Mama, is this the one who fixed the ship? Is this the builder who made the lights come back on?" Velcaris' hand rested on the child's head, a gesture of gentle restraint. "Yes, little one." "This is Mara. She saved us when the dark came." The child stared at Mara with unconcealed wonder. "You're so small." "How did you fix such a big ship when you're so small?" Mara couldn't help it. She laughed, the sound ragged with relief and absurdity. "Big tools, kid, really big tools." The child's delighted laughter joined hers, and something in the chamber's tension broke. The guards remained alert but less hostile. Velcaris gestured, and suddenly the room filled with movement. More children emerged from the doorway, a dozen of them, ranging from toddler size to near adult. They clustered around their mother, staring at Mara with curiosity instead of fear. "My ship suffered the meteorite impact during a navigation miscalculation," Velcaris explained, her voice taking on a formal tone. "We dropped from faster-than-light travel in an uncharted region for emergency repairs. Our engineers were assessing the damage when your signal reached us. You appeared before they could stop you." "I didn't see a signal," Mara said carefully. "I just saw the distress beacon." "Automatic rescue response. It's what I do, without knowing who you saved, without expecting reward." Velcaris' eyes gleamed. "Your species is unknown to us, Mara Chen. This region of space was marked as uninhabited in our charts. Yet here you are, alone at the edge of darkness, ready to help strangers in need." The weight of that settled on Mara's shoulders. First contact. She was making first contact between humanity and an entire alien civilization, and she'd done it by being herself, doing her job, helping, because someone needed help. The diplomatic corps would either give her a medal or throw her in prison for unauthorized contact. "I run a repair station," she said finally. "I fix things. Ships mostly, but also life support systems, navigation computers, whatever breaks down. I've been out here 20 X's. Someone needs help, I help. It's that simple." One of the older children stepped forward, eyes bright with curiosity. Do all your people think this way? Help first, ask later?
No, some do.
Some don't. We're complicated. But the ones who run rescue stations, who fix ships in the dark, who answer distress calls in the middle of the night, most of them think like that. Valkaris exchanged a look with one of her guards, a whole conversation passing in that glance. When she turned back to Mara, her expression had shifted to something calculating but not cold. The Athel Dominion spans 200 star systems, Mara Chen. We've encountered 43 sapient species in our expansion across this galaxy. Many were hostile. Many were fearful. Some became allies. None answered a distress call without first demanding terms. None risked themselves for unknown children. I didn't know they were children, Mara protested. I just knew someone was dying. Exactly. Valkaris' hand touched the crystal she'd given Mara, making it pulse brighter. This beacon will mark you as a friend of the Dominion. Any Ethel vessel that encounters you or your people will offer aid before hostility. It is a promise, from my bloodline to yours. The implications crashed over Mara like a wave. One good deed, one emergency repair in the dark, and she'd just secured protection from an interstellar empire for all of humanity. The politicians would lose their minds. The military would want to study this, weaponize it, turn it into leverage. But looking at Valkaris' children, at their wide eyes and curious expressions, Mara felt only a bone-deep relief that humanity's first contact had been peaceful. I accept, she said quietly, and I hope my people are worthy of this gift. We shall see, Valkaris replied. The Dominion moves slowly through this region. It will be months before our main fleet arrives. Time enough for you to prepare your people, to share what you have learned. Time enough for us to observe how humanity treats strangers. One of the smallest children tugged on Valkaris' lower arm, whispering something too soft for the translator to catch. The queen nodded and gestured. The child approached Mara, holding out a small item. A toy, Mara realized. A crystal figurine carved to look like a starship, glowing faintly with internal light. For saving us, the child said solemnly. So you remember we're friends. Mara's throat closed up. She knelt down, accepting the toy with gentle hands. I'll treasure this. Thank you. The child beamed and scurried back to their mother's side. Valkaris watched the exchange with satisfaction. My engineers have completed primary repairs. Your patchwork was crude but effective. They wish to study your techniques, to understand how you bonded materials so different with such limited tools. I'm happy to show them, Mara said, standing. Though I should warn you, human engineering is mostly improvisation and desperate creativity. We're still figuring things out. The willingness to improvise, to adapt, to help without hesitation, these are marks of potential greatness. Valkaris gestured toward a side corridor. Come. Let me show you what you saved. They walked together through the living ship, the queen matching her stride to Mara's shorter legs while children scampered ahead and guards followed at a respectful distance. The nursery took Mara's breath away. A vast chamber with adjustable gravity, viewing ports showing the cosmos, and sleeping alcoves that pulsed with gentle bioluminescence. Equipment she didn't recognize lined the walls, but the purpose was clear. Life support. Education. Safety. Everything a parent would want for their children. We are a long-lived species, Valkaris explained. My children range from 5 to 50 of your years in age. They will live for centuries if fortune favors them. This ship is not just transport. It is their home, their school, their sanctuary. When the impact breached our hull, when the darkness began spreading through these corridors, She paused, and for a moment the powerful queen was just a mother remembering terror. I could not reach them in time. The bulkhead sealed. Protocol demanded it. But you arrived before the air ran out. You saved them without knowing what they were. Any parent would have done the same, Mara said softly. Would they? Valkaris' eyes held ancient wisdom. In my experience, fear drives most species. Fear of the unknown. Fear of what helping might cost. You felt fear, I sensed it, yet you came anyway. They stood in silence, watching the children play in reduced gravity, their laughter a universal sound of joy and safety. One of the older children approached, holding a data tablet that glowed with symbols Mara couldn't read. Mother, the human station is primitive but functional. Should we offer technological exchange? What does Mara Chen think? Would your people welcome our technology or fear it? Mara thought about humanity, fractured and argumentative, brilliant and stupid in equal measure. Both, she admitted. Some would celebrate, some would panic. We're not ready for a massive technology gap. But small things, shared knowledge, and medical techniques, agricultural improvements, things that help instead of destabilize, that we could handle. Wisdom, Velkaris said approvingly. We shall proceed slowly. The Dominion has learned patience across the centuries. We will establish an embassy at your station if you permit it. A single-family unit to observe and be observed, to build trust before treaties. A family unit? Mara blinked. Velkaris' smile was distinctly maternal. Did you think I would leave this region without ensuring the one who saved my children was properly protected and honored? No. I will assign my sister and her family. They will live at your station, help with repairs, learn your ways, and when the Dominion's main fleet arrives, they will report whether humanity is worthy of friendship or merely expedient assistance. A year ago, her biggest concern was whether her oxygen recycler would last another month. Now she was hosting an alien embassy and determining humanity's fate. She started laughing, slightly hysterical, and couldn't stop. Velkaris waited patiently until Mara got herself under control. I take it you accept? Do I have a choice? Always. You could refuse. Return to your station. Pretend this never happened. The Dominion would honor your privacy and contact your people through official channels. Velkaris leaned down slightly, eyes serious. But I do not think you are one who runs from responsibility, Mara Chen. She was right, damn her. Mara had never run from anything in her life, not even when she should have. Okay, embassy, cultural exchange. I'll need to expand my station's living quarters and figure out how to explain this to my suppliers and occasional customers, but okay. We will help with the expansion. Consider it payment for your repairs. Velkaris straightened, and suddenly she was every inch the queen again. Now come. My engineers wish to meet you. My children insist you join us for a meal. It would be rude to refuse. The next hours blurred together in a confusion of alien engineering discussions, children's questions delivered in rapid-fire curiosity, and a meal that was surprisingly compatible with human biochemistry. The engineers were fascinated by Mara's improvised repairs, taking detailed scans and asking questions through translators that grew more sophisticated by the minute. The children wanted to know everything about humans, what they ate, how they lived, why Mara lived alone in space, whether all humans were as small as her if she had children of her own. That last question stung. Mara had left Earth young, running from a failed relationship and broken dreams. She'd built a life in the dark between stars, but it was a lonely life. Seeing Velkaris with her children, watching the easy affection and protective care, reminded Mara of everything she'd given up. But Velkaris noticed. The queen saw too much. Not all paths include children, she said quietly during a lull. Some are meant to fix what others break. To stand watch while others sleep. Your path has meaning, Mara Chen. Never doubt that. The words shouldn't have meant so much coming from an alien she'd just met. But they did. Mara blinked back unexpected tears and nodded. Finally, as ship's night approached and the children began yawning despite their excitement, Velkaris walked Mara back to the airlock. The guards followed, no longer hostile, merely attentive. At the threshold, the queen pressed another crystal into Mara's hand. This contains our embassy specifications and timeline. My sister Calvesh will arrive in 3 of your weeks with her family. She is practical and patient. You will work well together. Velkaris paused. Thank you, Mara Chen. I would be so... for your courage, for your kindness, for reminding the Dominion that goodness exists in unexpected places. Mara clutched both crystals, the beacon and the data storage, feeling their warmth. Thank you for not killing me when I broke into your ship. Velkaris' laughter was rich and genuine. That would have been poor gratitude indeed. Go, small builder. Prepare for changes. And know that you have made the Ethel Dominion your ally through nothing more than being yourself. The airlock cycled. Mara stepped into the void, her pod responding to her suit's recall signal. As she maneuvered away from the massive ship, she watched it heal the last of the damage, panels sealing, conduits rerouting, the breach disappearing as if it had never existed. The ship's engines pulsed with building power, preparing to leap back into faster-than-light travel. But before they jumped, every external light on the massive vessel flashed in sequence, a pattern too deliberate to be anything but deliberate. A goodbye, a salute, a promise. Then they were gone, and Mara was alone again in the dark. Alone, but changed forever. She looked down at the crystals in her palm, at the toy ship from a child who lived among the stars. In 3 weeks, everything would change. Humanity would learn they weren't alone. The Dominion would establish its first embassy with a species they'd never encountered. And Mara, the lonely mechanic who'd only wanted to help, would stand at the center of it all. She thought about calling Earth, reporting to someone official and important, but it was still 6000 hours and she hadn't slept. The crystals could wait. The universe could wait. For now, Mara Chen, mechanic and accidental ambassador, needed coffee and 8 hours of unconsciousness. Tomorrow she'd start figuring out how to build an alien embassy onto a repair station. Tonight she'd earned her rest. As her pod docked with her station and the familiar hiss of equalized pressure filled her ears, Mara smiled. 23 years of fixing broken things in the dark, and finally, something had fixed her too. Purpose. The connection. The knowledge that one person doing one good thing could change everything. She fell asleep still holding the toy ship, dreaming of children among the stars, and a queen who'd called her friend. 3 weeks later, right on schedule, a smaller Ethel vessel appeared near Mara's station. The comm systems lit up with the now familiar language translated smoothly by the crystal's embedded technology. Calvage, Valkyries' sister, and the new ambassador, greeted Mara with formal courtesy that quickly dissolved into practical discussion about living space and supply logistics. Calvesh was shorter than Valkyris, her skin a deeper blue with bronze instead of silver markings. She had 3 children instead of 12, all teenagers by Aethel standards, and a mate named Torval who worked as an engineer. They moved into the expanded quarters Mara had frantically constructed with help from 2 bemused human contractors who'd asked no questions when she'd paid triple their usual rate for speed and discretion. The integration wasn't seamless. Cultural misunderstandings happened daily. The Ethel needed higher humidity than humans preferred. Their sleep cycles ran 30 hours instead of 20. For their food smelled strange, though edible with the right supplements. But Calvesh was patient as promised, and her children were curious without being intrusive. Word spread slowly. Other repair stations noticed Mara's sudden expansion and unusual clients. Cargo haulers returning from runs near her station reported strange ships in the vicinity. The whispers reached Earth within 6 weeks, and official inquiries started flooding Mara's comm system. She ignored them all, following Valkyris' advice. Let humanity come to her. Let them see the Ethel living peacefully among humans before fear and politics poisoned the well. It was risky, probably illegal, and definitely insane. But it worked. The first human journalist to track down Mara's station expecting a scandal found instead a human mechanic and an alien engineer collaborating on a novel repair technique for plasma conduits. The article went viral. Within days, Earth's authorities stopped demanding Mara's arrest and started requesting formal introductions. The Dominion's main fleet arrived 8 months after Mara's initial repair, a force of 200 ships that made every military in human space go on high alert. But they didn't attack. They didn't even approach Earth's core systems. They simply took up position near Mara's station and sent a single shuttle. Valkyries emerged with her children and a full diplomatic contingent. She greeted Earth's hastily assembled delegation with the same grace she'd shown Mara. And when the terrified politicians asked why the Dominion was here, what they wanted from humanity, Valkyries had simply smiled. We came because a human saved my children without hesitation. We stay because Calvesh reports that humanity, for all its chaos and youth, shows the same qualities. You help each other. You fix broken things. You answer distress calls in the dark. She turned to where Mara stood awkwardly in her oil-stained worksuit, completely out of place among the diplomats in their formal wear. We came because of her. We will stay if you prove worthy of her example. No pressure, Mara had thought hysterically. Just the fate of human-alien relations resting on whether humanity could measure up to one mechanic's automatic kindness. But somehow, impossibly, it worked. The Dominion and humanity signed preliminary agreements. Trade routes opened. Cultural exchanges began. And through it all, Mara kept fixing ships at her station, now with Ethel engineers working beside her, teaching and learning in equal measure. 5 years later, Mara stood in the observation deck of her massively expanded station, watching ships of a dozen species dock for repairs. Humans, Aethel, and 3 other species the Dominion had introduced to their newest allies worked side by side in her repair bays. It was chaotic, beautiful, and more than she'd ever dreamed. Valkyries visited regularly, her children now young adults pursuing their own paths across the stars. The youngest, the one who'd given Mara the toy ship, was studying human engineering and spending half their time at the station. "Did you ever imagine this?" Valkyris asked, joining Mara at the viewport. "When you first patched that breach?" Mara laughed. I was mostly imagining not dying. Everything after that was bonus Adam. You saved more than my children that night, Mara Chen. You saved my faith that the galaxy still held good people. People who help because it's right, not because it's profitable. There are lots of people like that, Mara protested. I'm not special. You were the one who showed the Dominion that humanity deserved a chance. Velkaris placed one of her 4 hands on Mara's shoulder. Never underestimate the power of being first, of acting when others might hesitate. You changed the galaxy with a wrench and good intentions. Mara looked down at her scarred hands, calloused from decades of work, and thought about the terrified woman who'd launched into the dark to fix a dying ship. That woman hadn't been trying to change the galaxy. She'd just been trying to help. But maybe that was enough. Maybe that's all any of them could do. Fix what's broken. Help who needs help. Answer the distress calls in the dark and trust that small acts of kindness ripple outward in ways no one can predict. Thanks for not killing me, Mara said again, smiling. Velkaris laughed, the sound echoing through the observation deck. Thank you for being you, Mara Chen. The galaxy is brighter for it. Outside, the stars shone steady and eternal, witness to the impossible friendship between a mechanic and a queen, born from crisis and sealed with kindness. And somewhere in the vast dark, other people made other choices to help, to fix, to save without hesitation. Humanity, the Dominion, and all the species they touched learned the same lesson Mara had lived, that civilization isn't built on treaties or technology or military might. It's built on people who answer distress calls at 030 hours. People who fix broken things. People who save children they've never met. People who, despite fear and uncertainty, choose to help. The galaxy, Mara thought, could use more of that. And she would spend the rest of her life making sure it got it.